let's go to law and licensing.
No pressure, Chair.
Yeah, we'll hang on a little bit longer.
Oh, lunch actually is until 12:30, so.
So let's move to agenda item 5. This is Law and Licensing Committee report. And with Chair Carey online, he has asked that Vice Chair Bollinger, who is also Vice Chair of the Law and Licensing Committee, chair this portion of the agenda. So we will turn it over to you, Chair Bollinger.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So we will go to action item 5.2, American Leadership Academy waiver request, and this is a renewal. And the motion for the board is that the board approve American Leadership Academy's request for a waiver renewal from R277-419-4.
So the motion before the board is that the board approve American Leadership Academy's request for a waiver renewal from R277-419-4. Seeing no lights, let's vote. Member Carey?
Yes.
Member Green?
Yes.
And that passes unanimously. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you. The next item, 5.3, R277-322, Local Education Agency Code of Conduct. There's no motion for the board at this time, and there was a motion to postpone it, and that will be heard in committee tomorrow. So we'll move to action item 5.4, R277-212, UPAC Hearing Procedures and Reports, Amendments, and Continuation. Before I read the motion, I would like to just let the full board know there are several UPAC rules coming through that we've discussed, and just for your knowledge and understanding, there are just minor changes to each of these rules. As a committee, we decided that because we're doing a deeper dive into these rules, we didn't want to come with more amendments. Of course, this is up to the full body to determine. So the purpose of this is to do the continuation, but we are continuing to do a deep dive into all of the UPAC rules. So just to preface that. So the motion for the board on this item is that the board continue.
Can you
Yes.
explain why they are here then?
Yes, they're up for their 5-year review. Yes, yes, they're here because they're up for their 5-year review. So the motion is that the board continue and approve R277-212 UPAC Hearing Procedures and Reports, Draft 1 on second and final reading.
Thank you. The motion before the board is that the board continue and approve R277-212 UPAC Hearing Procedures and Reports, Draft 1 on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, let's vote. Member Carey?
Yes.
Member Green?
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you. We'll move on to action item 5.5, R277-213, Utah Professional Practices Advisory Commission request for licensure, reinstatement, and reinstatement procedures. Again, a just minor amendment and continuation. The motion is that the board continue and approve R277-213, Utah Professional Practices Advisory Commission request for licensure, reinstatement, and reinstatement procedures, Draft 1 on second and final reading.
The motion before the board is that the board continue and approve R277-213, Utah Professional Practices Advisory Commission, UPAC, request for licensure, reinstatement, and reinstatement procedures, Draft 1 on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, let's vote. Member Carey?
Yes.
Member Green?
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Okay, our next action item 5.6, R277-214, UPAC Criminal Background Review. The motion is that the board continue and approve R277-214, Utah Professional Practices Advisory Commission Criminal Background Review, Draft 1 on second and final reading.
Thank you. The motion before the board is that the board continue and approve R277-214, Utah Professional Practices Advisory Commission, or UPAC, Criminal Background Review, Draft 1 on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, let's vote. Member Carey,
Yes.
Member Green.
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Vice Chair Bollinger.
All right, we'll move to action item 5.7, R277216, surrender of license with UPAC, investigation pending. The motion is that the board continue and approve R277-216, surrender of license with Utah Professional Practices Advisory Commission, investigation pending. Draft 1 on second and final reading.
The motion before the board is that the board continue and approve R277-216, surrender of license with Utah Professional Practices Advisory Commission, or UPAC, investigation pending. Draft 1 on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, let's vote. Member Carey,
Yes.
Member Green. Member
Yes.
Green? Nope, we got you. Thank you. That passes unanimously. Vice Chair Bollinger.
All right, action item 5.8, R277-600, student transportation standards and procedures. This is an amendment. Just before I read the motion, just to let the full board know, there's a few minor changes we discussed in committee if you got a chance to listen to it. One is identifying that, or clarifying the definition that it's a child access routing plan, which makes it in alignment with code, and then also a requirement or a clarification on that if a sixth grader is attending middle school, that will impact it, because there are some schools that have sixth grade in elementary. And another additional amendment that LEAs are supposed to put a notice on their website, just clarifying that when a child access routing plan is created, they don't necessarily have the data to take into account where registered sex offenders and child abusers live. So just to clarify on that, the amendments that were made. The motion is that the board approve R277-600, student transportation standards and procedures, draft 2 on second and final reading.
Thank you. The motion is that the board approve R277-600, student transportation standards and procedures, draft 2 on second and final reading. I've got Member Carey, then Member Bogus. Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I support this motion, and I appreciate Rich Litchfeld and all of the help and assistance he gave the committee in these revisions. I just want to specifically address the requirement that LEAs disclose that currently the Department of Transportation for Utah distributes an alternative safe route plan. And it turns out that the safe route designation or name really only addresses those things that are observable. So if there's construction or there's a freeway that has to be crossed, or those physical elements. And what it doesn't take into account is the location of known and registered sex offenders who may live along the route that the Department of Transportation is designating as a safe route. So to be clear, this requirement will not require any LEA or school to disclose the location of these individuals or who they are, but rather just disclose that this safe route designation does not include a review of those individuals who may be along the route. So that's all. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Member Bogus.
Thank you, Chair. So I'd like to direct us to line 193, 94, and 95. My concern is the word might. So we're saying might, but we don't necessarily have to. And if our friend, I don't know, our friend A, who was run through the court system and he was really done wrong, we're just not going to include him in this because we might do it, but we don't have to do it. I'm genuinely, like, to me, this sends a really dysfunctional message. And why put it in there if it might take it into account as opposed to does take it into account or must?
I've got Vice Chair Bollinger would like to address that question.
Yeah, we actually had an extensive conversation in our committee about this language specifically because the way that it came to us said may not, which the way legally that was reading was that they can't take it into account at all, that they're not able to take it into account. So the reason why we changed it to might not is that it's not required to because we don't have the capacity to make it required, but that it's making sure that that's clear that it's not guaranteed that that's taken into account. So that's why the language that was suggested by legal was to change it to might.
Follow up.
So why do we not have the, I think you used the word capacity. I could be wrong, but why does our board not have the capacity or authority to make that a requirement?
If I may, Chair.
Yeah, Vice
Yeah, my understanding, and I can defer to AAG Bill on this, is that if it's not in code that requires that's something that we did discuss as far as there are some LEAs that could potentially do that. Not all of them have the capacity, so it would be an unfunded mandate. And AAG Bill, if I can defer to you as far as legally, could we require them to do that?
Elise.
If that's okay. I'll take it. Deputy Superintendent Nui. So you have the authority, you could require that. However, there are many things that have to be taken into account, and it also has to be in conjunction with several other government agencies, right? So UDOT, those kinds of things, safety. And because these lists change all of the time, this could, if we required it, or if the board required it, that would mean that LEAs are potentially having to change their routes all of the time, which includes a huge cost to the school bus routes, potentially, as well as disruption in student services. So if a student is getting picked up in one spot, that then they move the route to another area, then that student may have to walk farther. How do they let the parents know? So there's just a lot of logistical concerns. And if the board was going to do that, our recommendation from a legal standpoint would be that it would be a long-term kind of study on how we would do this in a way that's feasible for families, for students, for LEAs, that kind of thing. And we didn't want to go there yet. We'd like that to be a longer-term discussion.
Okay, so yeah, just a quick follow-up. So I'm listening to the deputy superintendent, and so I think the better language is does not. Because if they're not doing it and it's unfeasible to do it, wouldn't the better language be does not? Wouldn't that reflect what is happening here?
From our understanding and conversations with the legal counsel of different LEAs, some do take it into consideration. How they take it into consideration or what they do with that information differs across LEAs, and that's the part that's tricky. And so we didn't want to prohibit them from taking this into consideration or let parents know that they're absolutely not when some are. So it's kind of this place where LEAs are handling this differently, and I think board member Carey's intent was to let parents know that there is that difference across LEAs and may or may not take it into consideration depending on where they live and when.
Okay, thank you.
Lear.
I have a comment, and then I'd like to make a simple amendment to this same section. And I thought the committee had already agreed to this when we finished our discussion at the end of the meeting last month. But I did some research about the registered sex offender registry versus the child abuse registry. And the sex offender registry is public document, publicly available. The child abuse offender registry is not. It comes through DCFS, and only a limited number of entities have access to that information. So I thought last month we took out child abuse offenders altogether because we literally cannot have access. LEAs do not have access to the Child Abuse Offender Registry. It's not really a registry, the database. So I would like to make an amendment that said, and I don't particularly care about does not or might. If Deputy Newey has conversed with legal representatives from LEAs, and they've told her sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. As to registered sex offenders, then I think we should leave it might, even though that's atypical rule writing language. But I'd like to strike and child abuse offenders, because literally they cannot take that into account. And in fact, I worry that if they tried to, based on rumor or innuendo, it would be really legally challenging and of course damaging to individuals.
So, Member Lear, your motion would be to strike and child abuse. We'll
Yes.
leave offenders on there for
Sex
the
offenders,
sex offenders, yes.
registered sex offenders, yes.
So the motion is to
And sorry I
strike.
spoke to that before I made the motion.
Yeah, the motion is that the board amend R277-600 by striking and child abuse on line 195. Do we have a second? We have a second. You spoke to it. Any other
No.
thoughts on that? Remember, real to this motion or to the overall? Okay. Seeing no lights on this motion, do we have any online? Any hands? Member Carey?
No, I support the motion.
Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and tee this up. The motion is that the board amend R277-600 by striking and child abuse on line 195. Let's vote. Member Carey?
Yes.
Member Green?
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Member Reel to the main motion as amended.
Yeah, I have a question possibly for staff. Can we make any amendments to what is reimbursable, or is that dependent on code? Because I know that I've heard from some of my LEAs that they want more flexibility on what's reimbursable so that they can try to manage some of the massive staffing shortages that they have. So I'm just curious if the reimbursable part, if we have any ability to amend it, or if it's actually in code and there's no flexibility there.
As staff looks, Member Reel, will you help us identify where in the rule you're looking? Do you have a cluster of lines? Or is it just a general question
Well,
on the
it's
rule?
a general question because
Okay.
I don't know where in the rule we want
Okay.
to adjust
That's
it.
what
So oh, sorry. Yeah, it is. 266, it talks about reimbursable expenses.
It doesn't have that.
But I wasn't sure if this was written from the code or if there's flexibility there on what can be reimbursed.
It doesn't have.
Mm-mm. I know that transportation is super complex, and as Member Carey mentioned in a previous meeting, I get a lot of questions and a lot of concerns from both parents, but a lot of LEAs about how to navigate and how to be more flexible when it comes to transportation. But a lot of it has come down to code. So this is one moment where I thought possibly it might be flexible in the
So, Deborah, you're kind of giving me some vibes that you've got something to say here.
No, I just wanted to say we'll look into it really quick and see if we can get you a quick answer.
Is this something that can be taken offline that would affect your vote, Member Reel? And if it is, we can wait. If it's a curiosity, I don't know. That's why I'm asking. What would you like to do as they are searching for the answer to your question?
Yeah, it won't affect my vote because I think if there is, it could be something we could bring up bring back the rule and adjust later. So I'm fine waiting. It won't adjust my vote, but I am really curious about that piece.
Okay, well, it still looks like
I
staff
can't believe I
is.
stumped staff. I've never done this before.
It looks like they're going to do some research to find that answer. So if it won't affect the vote, let's go ahead and move forward. The motion that's before the board is that the board approve R277-600 Student Transportation Standards and Procedures, Draft 2 as amended on second and final reading. I don't see any additional lights, and so let's go ahead and vote. Member Carey,
Yes.
Member Green,
Yes.
and that we need one more. Oh, that passes unanimously. Board members, it is 12:11. Lunch is not ready until 12:30. We made up some time. Thank you. Let's not take any liberties to lose that time, but we are going to continue on if we can. Vice Chair Bollinger, continue to agenda item 7. This is Law and Licensing Committee report from the October 16th meeting.
Thank you, Chair. So we'd like to move to action item 7.1, R277-114, response to compliance and related issues, repeal and reenact. The motion that came out of committee is that the board approve R277-114, response to compliance and related issues, draft 3 on second and final reading. And I do have a substitute motion.
Okay, let me go ahead and state the motion that came out of committee, and I'll go back to you. The motion that came out of committee is that the board approve R277-114, response to compliance and related issues, draft 3 on second and final reading. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to make a substitute motion that the board approve R277-114, response to compliance related issues, draft 5 on, I guess, would that be the first reading or first and final reading? If it hasn't been read in committee?
We'll just say draft 5. You're just pushing
Draft
draft 5. Yeah. So the substitute motion is that the board approve R277-114, response to compliance and related issues, draft 5. Would you like to speak, or do we have a second? We have a second. Would you like to speak, Vice Chair Bollinger?
Thank you. So when draft 3 came out of committee, there was a lot of concerns that we had. There's been a lot of hours spent on getting to this to a place that our committee members felt comfortable with, and lots of different amendments and a lot of collaboration. I do appreciate staff for their help and support in making this possible, and all of the board members that have provided input, and board member Carey for his willingness to listen to the feedback. And so I think it's to a place that we feel comfortable with. So thank you.
Thank you. So the motion before the board is that the board approve R277-114, response to compliance and related issues, draft 5. Member Lear?
I appreciate that there was collaboration, as Amanda mentioned. I've got to say, I would still prefer, as one of those committee members and one board member, that we give a chance to the categories and the framework that was so painfully worked on over a year and a half. And I have some qualms about a process that's taken, though it seems like a long time, it's taken a couple of months. And I have some qualms about moving so quickly away from the compliance categories. And I also heard just yesterday that there are still, from someone who's in a meeting with superintendents, that there is still a lot of work to be done in communicating this change, because there were some LEAs who were concerned that auditors were knocking on their doors, and the LEAs were saying, but wait, this is only a category 1 as per your rule, because now about 2/3 of our rules have that statement in it. And why are you here? And some might say that's exactly the point, but I think we can't. Think we can't pivot so quickly with 160 LEAs. I think well, my druthers would be that we didn't pivot so quickly, but that was the will of the committee, and I support that these changes are much more reasonable, and I like them much better than the original draft. But I think we've got a lot of work to do with communication and training, because there are LEAs who will still be looking at a framework that was discussed with them for a year and a half and then implemented, and our rules were changed. And so I think we can't just say, oh, that work is done. I think we'll need to be very aware of what LEAs are expecting based on the work from the past year and a half. And this is something different. And I'd heard that the superintendent supports this approach, and I support her. No one has to be bound by old boards, previous administrations. So this is, I think, much better than when we started. But I just wanted to say I really did support the initial framework, thought it was a good approach. But I would support this now that keeping the framework's not in front of us.
Member Bogus.
Thank you, sir. I have a question, I believe, for AAG Bill, but through the chair, I'd like to look at line 428 and 29. And in 426 and 27, it says discussions and actions by the committee and subsequent discussions shall be consistent with board bylaws and policies. And as I understand it, our board bylaws make our committees subject to OPMA, even though technically they're not subject to OPMA. And so I'm confused as to why we have the inclusion of 428 and 429.
Please, AAG Beal.
Sure. So I guess it's a kind of moot distinction, but our bylaws say that our committee meetings are not subject to OPMA, but they are to be held openly. So we don't have necessarily the same requirements of notice, but our bylaws do say that we'll hold them openly. So it's a very thin distinction there.
May I follow up? So would I be correct in stating that this puts greater transparency on this committee than any other committee?
Yeah, a little bit, I guess. I mean, because OPMA, it does have more requirements than what our bylaws require. It would put that burden onto the committee.
I might come back to this.
Okay. Member Carey.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just think, with the priorities that the board has established, one of those being oversight and accountability, I think that this rule fills the gaps that we've had in our oversight and accountability system. I do appreciate the willingness of several board members to provide their feedback and insights and the benefit of their experience. And it was a collaborative effort to get here. And I think there are elements that all of us like and elements that maybe we're not as fond of. But I do think that this rule gets us to where we need to be in terms of our board priorities as we've established them. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no other lights, let's go ahead and tee this up for a vote. The motion is that the board approve R277-114, Response to Compliance and Related Issues, Draft 5. Let's go ahead and vote. Member Carey?
Yes.
Member Green?
Yes.
This passes unanimously. I have to thank those board members who put so much time into this. this is how board work should be done, right? And we get here and we have some questions and we vote. I just appreciate the time and effort and energy that people have been involved with in this, and it has not been easy. Vice Chair Bollinger will attest to that. And so, but that's how good work gets done. So anyway, Vice Chair Bollinger.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So we will go to action item 7.2, R277-111, Board Oversight Framework Repeal. So the motion for the board is that the board repeal R277-111, Board Oversight Framework on second and final reading.
The motion is that the board repeal R277-111, Board Oversight Framework on second and final reading. Seeing no lights, let's vote. Member Carey?
Yes.
Member Green?
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Vice Chair Bollinger?
Thank you, Chair.
Member Lear, a question related
To the just repealing R277 111.
it is repealed. Is your
Right.
question still?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
And I think it's for staff, probably Deputy Newey. I'm wondering if now we have to bring all those rules that have that category in them back to the board, or could we do as a non-substantive change because the rule no longer exists? Could we, and I do this not to be tedious or technical, but to say I think it would help LEAs understand or read the law more up in a more up-to-date fashion.
Elise, please.
Our thinking is that we will need to bring them back one by one, but the way that we will do that is similar to how we've brought them the first time, is that as these rules come up for revision for other things, we will just strike that out of the rule. So it will take a while.
Okay. So it just, as a quick follow-up, I hope we can make sure we let LEAs know that those are not applicable provisions anymore. Thanks.
Member Davis.
Would it be appropriate to ask for a list of board rules and what they were categorized before we start changing them all? Because for me personally, I have found it helpful just to understand resources, even just alone. Is it appropriate to request that from staff?
You could request a list, but with 111 being gone, it's meaningless.
No, I know. It just helps me to understand how much resources we have in each of these areas.
Oh, yeah.
Is that possible?
Elise is saying, yeah, she can. And that's
Perfect.
for any board member if
Thank
you want to
you.
know how much. Yeah,
That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to section 8.2. This is actually just a discussion, and we just wanted to update you as a full board that as a committee, as the Law and Licensing Committee, as part of our assignment to evaluate the UPAC process, we discussed the UPAC's purpose, the current structure, intake procedures and procedures that are outlined in board rule, and internal policies that exist to regulate UPAC. So we had quite the discussion. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that, I would invite you to go back and do that. And then we will be meeting again, I believe it's next week, Tuesday. So we'll be meeting again on Tuesday. If there's anything that you would like us to address, please reach out to one of us on the committee and we'd be happy to make sure that that's addressed. So with that, that concludes our law and licensing report.
Okay, perfect. Board members, let's dismiss for lunch. We'll still plan to be back here at 1, but you get 6 additional minutes. Merry Christmas. Yeah. Thank you.